Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back. It's been a minute and I haven't done as many updates on the shop as I wanted, but it is really coming along nicely as you see here behind me. Some of you guys might have seen I've been on a really big project trying to trim a monster house at the same time as purchasing a shop. I just did not have any time to actually work on this. So for the last couple months, it's mostly just been Saturdays coming over here and piddling around. But the last week or so, I've really had a chance to hit it hard and actually get stuff moved in. There was basically three things I needed to make happen in order to move shops. The first thing was I needed more electrical circuits over here to run my heavy equipment. Second thing was dust collection, because you can't run planers and joiners without good dust collection. And third, I needed to actually get the stuff over here. So the first thing, about a month ago, a good friend of mine came over and set up a sub panel for me and ran conduit to the equipment that I needed to move in here. So I've got a bunch of 220 circuits now, 30 amp and 20 amp to run my equipment. We brought this over from the main circuit panel and then mounted boxes up on the ceiling and around here. I talked previously about having everything laid out in SketchUp and kind of coming up with a plan for the shop there first. So what I did was I took my SketchUp plan, and based off of that, I located where I wanted my boxes to go for the machines up on the ceiling. We've got those up there, so I've basically got 3 boxes up here. And if we come over here, I don't have any equipment in this area of the shop yet. But eventually I could have a drum sander, wide belt sander, another table saw, things like that in this area that would drop down. And then on this back wall here, I've got 4 different circuits ran with 20 amp and 30 amp plugs for equipment that can be plugged in back there. So we're finally good to go on shop equipment electric. Next problem was dust collection. So going back a couple months ago, I was running and gunning full tilt on the job site. I really wanted to get the shop set up, but I knew I didn't have time for running ductwork across the ceiling and everything right now. And I was afraid that I might put a machine somewhere that I ended up wanting to move later, so I didn't want to run hard ductwork to it. At least that was my theory. So I bought this thing. It took me like 6 hours to put it together. Nice Laguna 3 horsepower dust collector, brand new here. As you see, I haven't even put a plug on it yet. That was basically a waste because I ended up needing to focus on the job I was on, and by the time I was ready to move stuff in here, I was also ready to put my dust collector in. And I ended up just running hard duct everywhere anyways. So I may hold on to this in case my dust collector goes down for some reason, or I may sell it. I don't really know. That was just kind of a bad idea that didn't end up panning out. A big part of my theory with this was that I could roll it around 2 different equipment if I needed to, and then if I'm moving different pieces of equipment around in the shop, this would be able to be pretty versatile moving it around to stuff like that. So it was a good idea in theory, but right now I ended up just finishing everything anyways. As you can see, I've got my old 5 horsepower Oneida installed up here. This was the biggest pain in the butt to move and get installed again. This motor up here is crazy heavy. I learned some things about designing a dust collection system really well, and I think I'm gonna make a dedicated video on shop dust collection. So if you have any questions about that, let me know. But this is working out really well, actually much better than it did in my old shop because I changed some things. So we'll talk about that in a different video. Any of you guys who have moved in the recent past know that you don't realize how much crap you have until you have to move it. So the first thing that I did was I started loading up my utility trailer and just bringing stuff over. The nice thing about having a bigger shop now is I didn't have to be as organized with how I was basically putting stuff away. So I had all this shelving out here already from the previous owner, So with a lot of my tools that were in my attic room storage, I was able to just load up these shelves and get stuff kind of somewhat put away out here, and that worked pretty well. The other big benefit of this shop was it had this huge storage room, and it's filled up pretty well right now. I've got a lot of my consumables in here, which I had shown on a previous video, but then with all the stuff I had, I was able to kind of start bringing it in here and putting it on the shelves. I tried to keep things divided up and organized as best I could, but right now it's not great. If you look over here, kind of my random hand tools just ended up just getting kind of thrown in here. So I definitely have a lot of work to do on getting things better organized, but again, it's so nice to have a lot of space because you can just throw crap everywhere and it's not that big a deal. I made a video probably 2 or 3 months ago about this nuts and bolts cabinet assortment. One of the reasons that I made this cabinet first is because I knew as I was outfitting the shop, I was gonna need a ton of miscellaneous fasteners, and that has proved to be a good move. I've been in here constantly grabbing miscellaneous nuts, bolts, washers, self-tapping screws of all lengths, etc. So this has been a great investment already. So after I had a lot of my hand tools and miscellaneous stuff moved, that left the big equipment. A couple weeks ago, I was able to finish the big house that I was working on, and I needed my equipment to still be set up while I was finishing that house for stuff that I needed to rip and plane and joint, etc. But as soon as that job was done, I hit it hard and started moving stuff over. Initially, I had used my utility trailer with a winch a little bit. That was not fun. I ended up borrowing a friend's skid loader with a tilt trailer to move this big stuff, and it made it an absolute breeze to get all of this big stuff moved over. Was able to just throw some straps on my planer and on my jointer, and then on the table saw, it worked out really well. I could just run the forks on the skid loader right under the table saw, drive the skid loader up the tilt trailer, let it sit down, lock it in place, and then I just drove everything over. I should say I drove the table saw over right on the forks of the skid loader. My house is only about 5 miles from the shop, so it was, a 5-minute drive back and forth. So I just made a lot of trips and it worked out really well. A lot of you guys probably remember in my old shop, this was kind of like the heart of the shop right here. I've got my assembly table and my rolling tool chest here. Moving this stuff with a skid loader was super easy. I could put this on the forks. I didn't have to unload it or anything like that. Just put it on the forks, put it on the front of the trailer, and then grabbed another item, drove it on, and then just went back and forth, back and forth. I never realized how heavy some of this stuff is. Like this assembly table is unbelievably heavy. You can't even lift it up. It's unreal. So using a piece of equipment like a skid loader was just awesome. So I was really happy about that. The biggest win for me was whenever I was finally able to get my table saw, planer, and jointer all plugged in and then have dust collection running to these 3 things, because that's the heart and soul of the shop. And once that was going, it was just, we were on the home stretch. So we're operational now. As you can see, everything looks really good. We've got blast gates to all this stuff, and it's working out really well. With shop layout, I've got to say, with my old shop, even though it was small, it was incredibly efficient for a one-man operation. Everything was very closely located together, so you could move from machining something on the joiner right to the planer and then to the table saw and to the miter saw, and it worked out really well. And I wanted to keep that same flow with the new shop here. The idea is we start back here with material coming into the shop where it's gonna be coming in, and we'll start processing it. For plywood, I wanted my plywood storage to be on this back side of the shop. And for that reason, I didn't put the table saw further back in the shop. I wanted it to be closer towards the door, where material would be coming in. You can see I do have my old material storage rack from the old shop over here. It allows me to keep some offcuts and different storage there, but if we pivot around here, I want to add some kind of a plywood storage rack in this area so that whenever I'm getting incoming material that needs to be processed, I can store that right here. I'm thinking maybe some vertical plywood storage might work out well. I could also do pallet racking and store plywood horizontally, but I don't have a forklift at this point, and I probably won't buy one right away, so I think the vertical plywood storage makes more sense right now. So the idea would be, especially we've got two different kinds of processing basically. We've got plywood processing and then actual S4S lumber material processing, which we would use for face frames and things like that. With plywood, it's going to be right here. It goes to the table saw and then can be pushed onto either a cart or just put directly onto my assembly tables back there. For ripping 1x material and stuff like that, I've got lumber racks over here by the miter saw. We'll probably store some material there, but it gets cut down on the miter saw and it'll come right to the jointer, and then it can either be ran through the planer or ripped on the table saw and then to the planer. But it's a pretty nice flow right here with these three machines. And then it was also nice because I could just locate the electrical and the dust collection all in this section going up right here. So I'm pretty happy with how everything is laid out right now, but I'm sure as I start using it more, I might tweak things. Most of my walking will probably happen in this area right here, and then my main assembly table will be right here. I like it where it's at. It's still close to my main equipment, and then I've got my miter saw station right behind me here. We've got tons of storage on my backside in here. So I think this will work out pretty good. I still need to figure out some kind of a boom arm that will be for my dust collector whenever I want to run a track saw or a sander or something like that. In the old shop, I had 11-foot ceilings, so I had a nice arm that came down and pivoted around for my dust hose, and I'm gonna really miss that. So I'm trying to figure out how I'm gonna fix that problem with these really tall ceilings. Right now, it's looking like I'll probably end up mounting something on the side of the workbench or the side of this tool chest. Coming towards the back of the shop here, this is where I've got dust or drops for my dust collection and electric to come down. In this area, I could add additional equipment in the future that I don't have right now. And then kind of my philosophy on this back wall is the same as what I had on my old shop. The equipment that I don't use very much, I try and keep on wheels and up against the wall out of the way. So a lot of this stuff I need, but I don't need very often. So I've got electric back here and a lot of different dust collection ports on the wall here to use stuff if I need it. But this is stuff that I don't use very often. I'm gonna continue to tweak stuff. My line boring machine is just kind of randomly placed over here right now. Ideally, I would rather have it in a little bit better location over here where I'm going to be processing plywood and where I would use it a little bit more. But I have limited time right now. I don't have time to make everything perfect. I don't have time to set everything up the way I want it as if it was going to be that way for the rest of my life. I'm really just trying to get my key equipment dialed in right now, and then I'll continue to tweak things in the future. This wall right here, this was a workbench that the previous owner had installed, and I've just left it for now. It gives me options for the future. I'd love to have an edge bander someday. That could potentially go right there. The line boring machine could go right there, different things like that. So we'll see how that evolves. But for right now, it's mostly where I just throw crap that I don't know where else to put. One thing I learned whenever I was first looking to purchase this shop, I got really obsessed with trying to plan out every detail and know exactly where I wanted everything and figure out what future machine purchases I was gonna have and stuff. And I kind of have realized at this point, you just can't do that. You just have to let the shop evolve, get your core equipment where it needs to be, but then realize you're just gonna keep letting it evolve and growing and adapting in the future, same way I did with my old shop. So just to recap with a view from the mezzanine, we've got material processing that happens right here. Incoming material is staged here. It's processed. Most of our assembly and work is gonna be done in this area whenever it's just one guy working in the shop. However, I did want to have a second assembly table. That way, if there's two of us working in the shop, two guys can be working, as well as it always annoyed me whenever I needed to be building something. If I had two projects going with only one workbench, it just never worked. So here I've got two workbenches. So if I want to throw some stuff on one workbench to clear another one, I've got that option. Also, these are on wheels, so I can move these to make one wide workbench or one really long workbench if I'm making beams or something like that. And then in this area, we can stage stuff. We've got finished cabinets, stuff like that. It can go here, area for future equipment to be put in right here. And of course, all the equipment on the back wall that's not gonna get used a lot. One area that I haven't utilized at all yet is this mezzanine. It's a full 60-foot long, 16-foot wide at the widest portion there. There's a ton of storage up here. The problem is the stair is all the way over in this corner of the shop. So if I put stuff up here, it's kind of a long walk to come get it and take it back down. So I'm not sure how this area is going to evolve to be used. The other thing is, since it is a wood shop, if I put shelves up here and put tools or etc. up here, good chance it's gonna get a little bit dusty. Whereas in my storage room underneath here, the door can be closed and it'll probably stay a little bit cleaner. So we'll see what happens up here. Not 100% sure yet, but you can't beat having plenty of space to throw stuff if you don't have anywhere else for it to go. I do think over here, I'm probably gonna have some metal brackets welded up that I can mount on this wall with horizontal supports coming off for lumber storage. I just think this catwalk here makes a lot of sense to be able to store lumber up here. One of the key projects that I'd still like to see happen in the future is to add an overhead door right here that would be about 9 foot wide. That way, when I get my forklift, I can run sheet stacks of plywood in and out or large cabinets through the shop and then stage them in the cold storage area. Or if I ever did finish off the other side, it would connect these two heated aspects of the shop. By the way, speaking of heat, it's getting cold here in Indiana, and I've got my floor heat turned on, and it has been absolutely amazing to be able to come in here and work every day and have it be 60 degrees and not have to fire up my propane heater in the shop and gas myself out every day and all of that jazz. So that's exciting too. One other thing I didn't mention, compressed air. I've got a lot of ports throughout the shop. The previous owner had pipe through the walls for different air outlets. And then I've got my 80-gallon compressor out here. That's proven to be very handy. You can't beat having a ton of air ready to go all the time. So really enjoying that as well. Now, a lot of you guys who know me well have probably noticed something behind me as we've done this video. I have a little bit of a love-hate relationship with the Festool Capex. I did end up purchasing one for this miter saw wall. Stay tuned for the next video. I did a whole build video on this miter saw wall, and I'll talk a little bit about why I ended up going back to the Festool Capex instead of my DeWalt slider. So Hope you guys enjoyed the update video. It's a huge weight off my shoulders to have the shop where it is right now. Essentially where I'm at now, I can start finally building stuff in here again for the houses that we're working on. So that's a huge, huge burden lifted off. Let me know what you think. Appreciate you watching. Hit that like button, drop a comment if you got any questions, and we'll see you on the next video.